How y'all doing? Where the mainstream media complex is concerned, do you think the press spins tales that serve the powerful while sidelining the truth of the American trucker? That's one of the topics on today's agenda. You think the media is working for us, or are we just mere pawns in their grand game? Well, buckle up, folks, as we're about to find out your thoughts, see spin in action, and decide once and for all who's winning. And so, another day of broadcast excellence here in the Trucking City Mobile Studios, currently located in or near Sioux Falls, Idaho. Founded by a leader in charge of the fastest movement in social media with the skill granted by God Himself to restore your faith in broadcast talent. From behind the golden truth and broadcast microphone, defending the honor and respect of our United States of Truckin'. In it for the millions of you worldwide that are feeling neglected and misinformed, fighting for the truth and the power to make truckin' great again.
Shall we begin?
From the trenches of trucking experience and a passionate heavyweight in the Truth in Broadcasting Network. Welcome to Truckin' City News Frontline Podcast, hosted by the most opinionated broadcaster on YouTube, Boss Man.
Heidi ho, good day, and welcome to another wonderful show. Today, I'm going to make some waves, and I'm going to do it in a way that I normally don't do it. I'm always changing things up. Got to keep you on your toes. Welcome to another riveting edition of Frontlines. I'm Boss Man, your guide through the tangled web of news, opinions, and let's face it, propaganda that the mainstream media feeds us every single day. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on what I'd like to call the Truckin Agenda. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, folks, it's simple. Every time there's a big story in transportation, whether it's regulations, whether it's accidents, the economy, you name it, you can bet your bottom line that the mainstream press has its spin all ready to go and hot and printed out long before the event even finishes. But who are they really spinning it for? Is it for you, the hardworking men and women of the trucking industry, and the many other aspects of transportation? Or is it the mega corporations, the big trucking, the big transportation? Well, today, we're going to dissect some recent stories and expose the truth behind these headlines. Are you really ready to see who's behind all this? Well, I'm excited to bring it to you. You're tuned to the most opinionated trucker. That's me, Boss Man, the CIC of the Truth in Broadcasting Network, hosting a show that all others cannot be. Fair, unbiased, not fixed by the corporate elites. We're defending the honor and respect of what I call the United States of Trucking. No longer settle for silence. People get off the fence, speak out, be heard. And here is a place where you can do just that. We hold the media accountable, especially when they favor corporate elites, big businesses, and unions that absolutely have no interest in working for the independent trucker like you and me. Now, you can support our engagement and do what it's necessary to help us reach more people. And I would encourage you to do that. You can do so by calling in our studio line, 860-785-3547, 860-785-3547. Or you can also take the liberty of sending me an email if you see a story out there that you would like to see covered more eloquently than I can ever do, or differently than the mainstream with an agenda ever does. You can send it to that'struckinnews@outlook.com. We will continue to make this a go-to place for trucking news and debate and problem solving. We are covering a lot tonight, so sit down, buckle up, grab a drink. It's about to get real. First, I want to tell you something, though. The other night I was reminded, I did a live with a few friends, and after the live, we had a little bit of a discussion. And I was reminded that, you know what? Sometimes I can be wrong about things. I'm not infallible. I do make mistakes occasionally, too. I have the ability to learn. And even though I stand here on this show and spout off opinions, trying to encourage you to do the same, I sometimes get it wrong. I make mistakes. No one person gets everything right. Sometimes we fall and sometimes we stumble. But the question I ask and the question I pose to you tonight is, what do we do with that? What do we do when we get egg on our face? When we make mistakes, when we make the wrong decision, when something doesn't work right? Well, what we do is we get up. Our greatest glory, and this is said by Confucius, our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. I'm here every day. I'm sharing my thoughts, but I don't always get it right. I'm going to have a panel of guests here very soon that are probably more versed and more experienced in a lot more ways than I am. I'm boss man. I'm not perfect. I welcome dissent. I welcome the opportunity to learn. I want you guys to school me on what I don't know and watch me humbly get back up on my feet and continue walking down and cross the finish line. So that's in the spirit of the moment. That's what I want you guys to remember. It's not in falling down, but every day we can get up and make a comeback. And that's Truckin', a shameless plug for another channel. Anyway, so on to the story. All right, I'll bring the guests up in just a moment. I will check the comments. We will get caught up. Today's an important story, though. Okay, folks, when you look at the headlines coming out of the arbitration hearing for Canadians' major railroads and the unions, the media would have you believe it's just another labor dispute. But I'm here to tell you there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface. It isn't just about workers' rights, the economy. It's about control. Now, let me ask you, who do you think really pulls the strings? Think about that for just a moment. Is it the workers? Is it the unions?
It's unfortunate that the minister decided to use the Article 107 of the Labor Code, and we believe that this article will be challenged in court. This crisis was orchestrated by the cartel of the rail industry in Canada. He was pressed, and he got the pressure, and he made that decision suddenly that, okay, guys, we have to force you back to work. And as far as we are concerned, this is not acceptable.
Calling on rail companies, Teamsters Canada, and the federal government to put politics aside and stop what could be a devastating strike.
Yeah, so for the grain industry, a work stoppage of this magnitude couldn't come at a worse time. We are just entering harvest. The grain shippers are beholden to dual monopolies, we call them, as opposed to duopolies. Because if you're a prairie elevator and you're on a CN line, you don't have an option of shipping CP. So this will be the first time in our collective memory that both CN and CP would be facing a work stoppage at the same time. In this case, there will be a complete stoppage, and there is no plan B because there's an absence of competitive alternatives. We can't move grain by truck.
The mainstream media is quick to frame this as a battle between the greedy corporations and the hardworking union members. They paint a picture of the unions fighting valiantly to protect their members from exploitation and fatigue, while the big bad railroads are focusing on maximizing profits. But here's the kicker. They never tell you who benefits when these so-called negotiations drag on and on. They don't tell you about the billions of dollars at stake, the cross-border trade that grinds to a halt, or the small businesses that get caught in the crossfire. Now, you might think this is a business as usual thing, but it's anything but. The media doesn't want you to notice how these stories are carefully crafted to stir the pot. Why? Because it keeps the focus on the unions and the corporations, away from the bigger question. Who stands to gain from the chaos? It's the same players every time, folks. The unions with their powerful backers and the corporations with their government connections. And where does that leave the rest of us? Stranded, waiting for the next shipment that might not come because the media's narrative has just kept us distracted from the real issue: control. Control over supply chains, over the economy, and yes, to a degree, over us, the everyday people who just want to get by without the interference of big government and big media. When railroads shut down, it's not just the trains that stop. It's the lifeblood of our economy. And yet, the media doesn't want to talk about that. No, they'd rather keep you focused on the drama, the he said, the she said of labor disputes, and the real power brokers sit back and watch us squabble over the scraps. A lot of the major media this week painted a real grim picture and did exactly what I just wrote as my prepared remarks. I want to welcome you to what I call the bulletin. Start of every one of my front lines from here out. I'm going to have one of these. I have a lot of opinions, and they're not always the right ones, and not always the best ones. But I think it's fair to say that a very solid and firm opinion is that the media has an agenda. And in this case, I'm about to prove why I feel that's true. Because everybody's talked about the big railroads, the big unions, the big everything in this. The few people that have spoke up on our behalf are the smaller networks, the smaller trucking channels. And I'll give you but a sample of that here once we get into the panel and once we get talking. But the idea is the media really needs to get back to basics. They really should. Because at one time, it used to be about fighting for the everyday man and woman, the people like you and me. That ain't so much the case anymore. Things have certainly changed over a number of years. I got a panel of people that I think will most definitely agree with me. So let's get caught up with the panel and the comments. And let me ask you in the audience, of the remarks I just gave about media and corporations and this whole situation going on with the Canadian rail strike, please put it down in the comments. Let me know if you think I hit the nail on the head or if you think I got it wrong. What say you, Big John? What be your thought on major media and their outlook on this rail strike?
Well, as a whole, major media, I mean, honestly, in the society we live in now, it's all clickbait. I mean, not just this strike, but across the board. I don't care what media site it is or what media channel it is. it's all about just getting clicks and making money. It's not about telling us what's true, what's important, what we need to know. So I'm sure that's true in this particular case too. Honestly, I've done no research into this because I'm more of like a shoot from the hip type of guy. So I'm coming into this kind of blind. So if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. But at least I'll be passionate about it no matter what. So.
Well, everybody is. I mean, it's our lifeblood in terms of daily vibes, daily work. You know, we depend on what the decision makers do and what they say. So in every sense, you have every right to be passionate about it. So, are you Grumpy? What do you think? Do you think the media's got an agenda, kind of the way I think, or do you think I'm wrong on that?
Honestly, I think they're kind of trying to cover certain things up. They only want us to hear what they want, which is normal from most of your medias. Um, I mean, that railway actually runs all the way down here close to my home state in Oklahoma. In fact, a few times they've actually used our rail that runs through my hometown.
Mm-hmm. So that's quite commonly used by the Canadians.
Yep.
That's
It's
interesting because every
because they're
time I pass one of those, yeah, every time I pass one of those, I think it's just east-west railroad. I don't think nothing about the north-south line. I don't. I really don't.
no, they actually leased the rail running through Oklahoma because it's part of Kansas City. Also, they combined together a few years back, Canadian Pacific and Kansas City.
Right.
Okay, makes sense. Yep. All right. Well, one thing for sure, I know somebody that might personally be affected would be yourself, Dumper, because you do. I understand grain hoppers. Is that? Am I understanding that correctly? Did I get that right?
Oh, yep. Sorry, my
Okay.
headset cut out a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. That's
Uh,
fine. So, what do you
yeah,
think? Do you think the
actually,
media is covering for big companies like that, or do you think that I might have gotten part of that wrong?
actually, the way I kind of see it, the bigger question is it's like a magic trick. Hey, go look at this over here while they're doing something over here. They're trying to get our
Sleight of hand.
attention.
Yeah.
They're trying
Yeah.
to get attention off something else. I mean, honestly, I haul grain, and the type of trailer I haul, there's 6 of them that fit in a grain car.
Mhm.
And I know at the beginning of the summer we were busy loading into grain cars, but it has slowed down. But then again, harvest season's kicking up. They shipped all their product already and everything. So
Right.
now we're grabbing from the farmer and taking them to the elevator. So as of right now, the strike hasn't really affected, at least from what I've seen, us yet.
Mhm. Yeah. That may change, and I think I'm probably jumping the gun by making that assumption, but we'll see with the second news clip I'm going to play here in a few minutes. That you may feel something, but you may not. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that. Larry the Trucker, what do you think? I don't know how much you do in terms of grain. It doesn't really get down to that level, I don't think. But you, by all means, have to have an opinion about major media, big corporations, and their spin. So tell me what you think.
They only spin to the top dollar. They don't spin to the low guys that are out here doing the work.
Mm.
It's
Lowest
all an
denominator.
agenda for the big companies, and the big companies tell them what story to push. So
Right? Yep. Yep.
you're
Okay.
better watching BBC to get better news.
Well, and that's just it. You got to be selective in the news you select to actually trust because you know what? I don't even think the most conservative news outlets have an honest, agenda free coverage menu option, if you will. Every single company out there has an agenda to speak of. You, poet, probably see more Canadian coverage and probably see more of an agenda up there than we will ever see down here. But in terms of unions and big companies, I'll bet you've got just about as much as you can stand.
pretty much.
No.
There
So
are
what's
two
your opinion
channels
overall?
that
What?
I use. One is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what's your opinion overall of the
My
whole
opinion.
railway? Yeah, railroad strike. You let me know.
It's the grabberment that
Oh yeah.
caused all this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you know what I'm saying there.
I do.
CP, or Canadian Pacific, is
Mhm.
no longer Canadian Pacific. It is now Canadian Pacific slash Kansas City Rail.
Mm.
So yes, the north south lines are going to be affected.
Okay.
Yes, I'm out on the prairies.
Yeah.
Harvest.
Mm.
And once the elevator gets full, what are they going to do with the product?
Very true. Very true. Very true indeed. I'm going to take a moment, Poet, if you'll bear with me a second here. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to say hello to some of the people in our comment section today. Truckin is Dead is in the house. Nan is in the house. Girl in a semi, I'm certain that's the same person. Let me see. Donna Deschler, hi, how are you? I'm glad you could make it tonight. Griff, hi from Greenville. God bless you. Thanks for joining the show. Sassafras is with us. I see a lot of repeating comments, so looks like a lot of people are using StreamYard to make comments. So a lot of people saying hello. So there we go. Once again, guys, if you're watching the show, take a moment, drop in the comments your opinions about my open tonight, how you think I've either called it or tell me if you think I've gotten it wrong. In terms of news coverage, you were fixing to tell me a second ago, Poet, who you trust and who you don't. Who is that? Who do you trust and who don't you trust?
When it comes to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, they're about as liberal as you can get. And when I look at Fox, they're about as conservative you get. But I am
Yeah.
still maintaining we are up here, all it the mainstream media. Call
Yeah.
it. It's the lame stream media because all they
I
want
get
to
the reference.
do is uh,
Mhm.
bamboozle us.
Yep. I definitely get the reference. I feel similar in that any of the major corporate backed media complexes like your CNNs, your MSNBCs, your ABCs, your NBCs, they're to a large degree
Mhm.
because they're backed by so much money and so many people paying their advertising dollars. They have really no choice. So I may get a little negative sounding about the coverage, but it's only because
And that's
as an individual fighting for an industry, I want to see us represented fairly. And that's really the only reason
how
I
would
hit
you
it from the
feel?
angle that I do.
Okay, how would you feel income tax dollars went to to support, fund, and pay for CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, happening with CBC up here?
Mm-hmm.
It's the Canadian taxpayers' dollars keep
Right.
corporation afloat.
Yeah. And I'm not entirely sure that to a degree that doesn't happen here in the States. I mean, there's certain protections, but there's 503c money floating around somewhere.
I
And
don't.
I'm sure these news
I
networks
don't
are
know.
getting a hold of it somehow. So I mean, I can't prove it, I can't
I
not
have.
prove it, but
I,
there's no reason not to suspect it, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
it's
when it comes to,
yep.
and I'm gonna slightly shift gears here, not to cut you off, Poet. When it comes to actual dependable
Okay.
news coverage on industry-wide events, like say regulations, like the things you and I have talked about on many occasions, John, where is it you go and rely most heavily on the coverage regarding anything that deal with trucking? What do you rely on?
Actually, not just trucking, everything. I actually watch a whole wide spectrum, from crazy far left to crazy far right, and everything in between. And then I think for myself and formulate my own opinions, because I think they're all bought and sold by large corporations, and they all do what they need to do to get clicks because they're paid by advertisers. So you combine those two together, and the news is very biased. I don't care if it's conservative, I don't care if it's liberal, doesn't matter. They're all biased. So the best
Yep.
thing you can do is use your own common sense, educate yourself, and come up with your own opinions.
Amen to that. Yeah, certainly agree. We also got you didn't build that. He's in the house. Seven C's is also in the house. Definitely people I didn't recognize earlier. My apologies because I've gotten kind of caught up in the programming, as it were. So yeah, it is what it is. But we are definitely talking tonight about the agenda of major news corporations, specifically tonight about how it relates to the Canadian railroad strike. Um, Larry, I mean, again, same question to you. When it comes to actually getting dependable news, do you rely on the major news networks or do you have other sources that you rely on when it comes to trucking related news?
I just listen. I just watch CDL Life.
There you
It's
go.
trucking.
Yep. That's a good source.
I
Yeah.
mean, mainstream media is not going to get our story straight.
Yeah, they seldom ever do. What about you, Grumpy? Do you rely on mainstream or do you look at secondary sources or even other YouTube channels other than my own, of course? I could have you toot my horn, but I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, if I want news and wonder what's going on, all I got to do is check my group.
Yep. There you go. I was actually going to suggest that, but I was going to wait till later. Anyway, that's funny. That's funny. I should have saw
Well,
that coming, actually.
A lot of the news that I receive is from watching social media and hearing it from other friends and family members as well that watch news networks from all over. Some of it is believable, some of it is not. And if I don't believe it, I usually research it myself.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Let me see. Checking on. So you didn't build that. Says, yeah, there's nothing wrong with echo chambers. The world turns on a confirmation bias. That's cool. I think you're referring to major news outlets, but yeah, good to know that. Appreciate your opinion on that one. You didn't build that.
I did build that, by the way.
Huh? Well, I'm trying to think of a way of shortening that because that's a lot to say, in terms of a name. That's just long. I'm just going to call him YB. That works for me. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. Let me continue on with my remarks to close them out and build up to a few questions here. So ask yourself the benefits from this. From all that we talked about, what my remarks earlier prefaced. Are the workers benefiting? Are the corporations? Or is the media and their allies who thrive on the disruption that they create? This isn't just about a contract, talking about the Canadian rail strike. It's about a system that keeps us, meaning you, me, and the rest of the transportation industry, divided and distracted while they consolidate their power. It's just like Thumper said a minute ago. It's that whole sleight of hand. We're doing over here, but really, don't look over here. And until we see through the smoke and the mirrors, we'll keep playing right into their hands. So obviously, you've got to be very selective about where you go, what information you pull in and trust as being accurate. This opinion piece continues this discussion by exposing how the media manipulates stories to maintain control over the narrative while obscuring the broader implications of the labor disputes. It challenges the audience, like you, to truly understand who benefits and who don't. And I'm going to bring this really full circle by showing you one important thing. You remember the open I just showed you a few moments back. Now I'm going to show you the juxtaposition of a couple of other news networks that were talking about the very same thing and bringing it full circle. Here you go.
Replacing one train with truck movement means 300 extra trucks on the road, and that is, it's not achievable. There just aren't enough trucks. And
part of it, give me 1 second.
Tonight with the latest on the work stoppage at Canada's two major railways.
As you can see behind me here, trains are at a standstill here at Gage and Lawrence in Hamilton. And this is one of two rail companies that are involved in this labor dispute. These locked out CPKC employees, most of them from Hamilton and Welland, say they love their jobs, but don't want to be forced back to work. Yesterday evening, Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon asked the Canada Industrial Relations Board to impose final binding arbitration, and also asked the board to order the railways to resume operations.
We want a negotiated contract. The best deals are negotiated. Each side can kind of hash out what's important to them.
The rights of Canadian workers have been significantly diminished today. Now, you'd expect someone from the union to say that, but he does have a point. The second they go on strike, they immediately squash this thing. So how much traction were they really able to get? So they can't strike during arbitration, but what's going to happen here? This is going to become the fall of labor over in Canada. I'm not sure. Down in the U.S., we've gotten things done a little bit quicker. CSX has added more union agreements down here. Eastern Railroad CSX said has come to tentative agreements with 7 more unions ahead of scheduled collective bargaining. NS and BNSF reached early contracts with unions as well. Good.
Now, I play that because the Canadian side of things made such a stink about the fact that, okay, if everything stops, the unions don't get back their negotiations, they don't round it up, everything comes to a stop, the economy will crash, all that kind of stuff. And even to a small degree, some of the major news networks down here did much the same cry for, let's get it done. And I just played for you this clip, which tells a whole different story. Now they're talking about what really would happen, and even, to a smaller degree, the one clip in the lady in the front and all that started, that was from the city I'm in, actually. Not Sioux Falls, but it's northern Idaho northern Iowa, the grain belt, as it were. So those news companies there, they pretty much called it and said what needed to happen, and their news coverage was focused on the workers. And then I finished off with what the truck, who actually, I think, pretty much nailed it. And one of the points he went on to make, I didn't play here, but one of the points he went on to make is that other unions are going to learn from this, and other people who are major stakeholders in what goes on in any industry like transportation or affiliated with, they're watching. They're watching real careful at what's going on. And albeit the U.S. government and our institutions and our whatever, they're all acting differently and they're set up differently. But don't think for 1 second, that if the major news media props up an angle on a story, someone's not watching and calculating, how can I make this serve me? What am I going to get out of this? It's really, really hard not to call and predict future events, especially the way what the truck put it up. I don't watch him very much, but I think he nailed it on the head. And he said, you know what? There are people out there watching this. And he pointed it. CSX down here, they're watching. And you can bet they're putting their collective bargaining asses right to the collar right now. And they're thinking about it. Because I think they do bargaining every 2 years, I think. It's either every 2 or every 4. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've been affiliated with the railroad. But they're not stupid. They are way smart for their own good. So on the broader picture, put it in the comments. If you're watching the show, I want to hear from you. Call our studio line, 860-785-3547. Let me hear your opinion. Let me tell me, why do you believe the mainstream media avoids discussing the broader impact of these shutdowns on small businesses and everyday consumers? John, what do you think? You think there's a hidden agenda there?
That's a
You think
loaded
it's a panic?
question.
Well, I
It's
mean,
a
you think it's
loaded
panic?
question.
What do you think? Yeah.
No, there's always a loaded agenda. I'm sorry. I mean, as human beings, we're always trying to manipulate the situation to make our own situations better. I mean, the media, the unions, the railroad, they're all doing the same thing. It's all about them. I
It
mean,
is usually.
honestly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to a degree, I'm sure you're right. And, you know, it is what it is. You can't really change their perspective. All you can do is glean the information and move on with what you think is the real truth. And, you know, that's really the only way around it.
Yeah, I mean,
what about go ahead. Finish your point, John.
sorry, I just wanted to point out one comment that Seven Seas made down below. He said people watch whatever news outlet confirms their own beliefs and biases. I actually 100% agree with that. That's why I watch such a wide variety of news from far left to far right, because that protects you from becoming that person that only has blinders on and only sees what you want to see. You know.
There you go. Yeah. Good point to make. Good point to make. So, why do you think, Grumpy, they avoid discussing the broader impact of what happens to the small guys and people like us, the end consumer? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, the way I look at it is they're probably just trying to cover up what they, don't want us to see, just like normal media does. And that's kind of what Thumper was hitting on earlier. I mean, they want us to see what they want us to see because that's what's going to get them the ratings and get them the money coming in. So there's other things there that could be possible that we out here need to know, but we're not finding out until it's too late.
Yeah. Could be. Very well could be. I mean, who's to say? I mean, honestly, the reason I bring up the panel, of you guys the way I do is because honestly, I don't know it all. I mean, I figured it out the other day. Do you know there's well over 110 years of combined experience on this panel right now? I mean, just think about it. With all the experience. Well, I actually included fate in my prediction because I did this the other night with the last live we had. But we got close to 100 years just sitting here. I mean, it's wow. I mean, think about that. Everybody's got their own unique and different opinions. It's really, it blows my mind when you think about it. Hell, Poet, you take a majority of it. I was going to say, you take up a majority of it. You got over 50 years in the business. So, I mean,
it's well over 100, probably closer 175.
Mm-hmm. So, from the Canadians' perspective, let me ask you, why do you think the mainstream avoids discussing the broader impacts of the shutdowns on the small businesses? What do you think?
Because small businesses, okay, do very little advertising with stream media. Very little.
All right.
Why? Because they can't afford it.
Obviously. Yeah.
Okay. So it's the big corporations that get the push. It's the big corporations that get the headlines. Now, let me remind you, the CBC up here, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, does not do a whole lot of advertising.
Right.
You might as well say one. So,
yeah,
they
very
are
true.
dependent on the Canadian taxpayer.
Yep.
And who is actually who's getting bent over?
Yeah. Don't mind my distraction, folks. I've got a junior driver backing in about to take my mirror off. So I'll be
Let
watching.
me point out from what Poet just said.
Okay.
If they're not getting advertising money, they're probably getting it from the government. But doesn't that make them more apt to do what the government tells them to do rather
Yes.
than what journalistic integrity tells them to do?
Mhm.
I'm just pointing that out. Obviously, that's what he was talking
Exactly.
about. But yeah,
What what I'm that's what I'm saying. We have a very left-wing liberal government here who just shells out millions and millions and millions. Okay?
Yep. Yep.
What do you think CBC is going to do? They're not
Yep.
driven by their advertisers. No, they're driven by my tax dollars. And I disagree.
Mhm. We have literally
You know,
an
it's
inch getting ready. Oh, he got lucky. He got lucky. We had less than an inch between his trailer and my mirror. I was about to hit the horn. He saved it. He saved it at the last minute, folks. He saved it at the last minute.
welcome
Anyway,
to Truckin.
Biden wears diapers is also in the House. He says when unions get higher wages for their members by restricting entry into an occupation, those wages are at the expense of other workers who find their opportunities reduced. Apparently, he's quoting Milton Friedman. You guys agree with that?
To some
Anybody?
extent, I do.
Yeah, Grumpy, you do? Okay.
I would say, a lot of times what people don't realize, and this is just basic economics, but when unions go after higher wages, that money is not coming from the company. I mean, for instance, we'll say UPS. UPS just recently, a few months ago, settled their contract. Well, everybody got big raises. Okay, where's that money coming from? The consumers. We're going to pay that. The company's not going to take less money.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, everybody to a degree or another has a part to play in that. We buy stuff all the time. If it's not overseas products, it's domestically. But either way, there's a big company somewhere behind the making of everything we buy. It doesn't matter
the
what you buy.
middleman.
Yeah, well, exactly. It doesn't matter what you buy or what you choose, to partake in. Are you a domestic producer, domestic consumer? You're still supporting somebody somewhere, a corporation.
Yep.
Because unless you buy like handmade jam from the local farmers market and that's all you live on, you're
well, then you're supporting the farmer.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the little guy as opposed to the corporation.
No, I know.
You can't get away without giving a corporation some sort of dollar, somehow.
Yep.
You got to. I mean, every time you buy a gallon of gas, you're supporting Exxon, Chevron, or the major companies there, big oil. Every time you turn on the light switch, you're supporting big energy. Every time you turn your computer on, you're supporting Microsoft indirectly. You're supporting all the big corporations that supply you the news you consume. Even watching YouTube, you're supporting YouTube. You're contributing to the advertising dollars that help pay people like me to produce the content you're watching. So
you're also supporting us as content creators too.
I was just gonna go there. Thank you for biting my nose off. Anyway,
no problem. No problem. That's what I'm here for, sir. Reporting for duty,
right.
Mr. Nose Biter.
Yeah, just there you go.
You leave my nose alone.
Interesting fact. It's been 31 years since Canadians have won the Stanley Cup. Okay, not related to trucking, but I'll let it slide because it's Canadian. That one I'll do for you, my friend. Is he right, Poet? Is he actually right on the money or what?
Oh yeah, he's right on the money.
Oh, yeah, he's right.
But
seems like he's like, who cares? I knew you were gonna go there.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're into. If you're into hockey, I guess that's a big deal. But for me, I just buy my cup from.
I was going to say, if you talked to me 18 years ago, I'd have been rooting for the Dallas Cowboys. Today, not so much. But hey, that was 18 years ago.
Wrong.
What were you saying,
boss,
Larry?
Man.
I know, right? What were you saying, Larry? I heard you pipe up. I couldn't hear you.
I was saying I thought all Canadians watched hockey. Figured that was their baseball of us.
Now, it depends on what kind of Canadian you are.
chance,
How much money
Larry.
you make. Yeah, it depends
I
on what
thought
kind of
that was a
Canadian you
rule
are.
up there. You must watch.
Nah.
You must watch hockey.
Say,
I know the northern part of the United States, like Minnesota and Wisconsin, they're all big into hockey up there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm sure Thumper could tell you that.
cool. Have
Uh-huh.
at it.
Yeah,
Have.
they
That's
they
cool to
are, but
have
I don't
at.
watch
Okay,
it.
I don't do sports. I don't
They
do
are, but I don't
sports.
want. Notice how he disassociates himself with the rest of Minnesota, eh?
Yeah. I was born and raised in North Dakota, so a little difference there.
Oh, okay. So you're only half a Minnesotan, huh? Okay, I
No,
get that.
I'm little Canadian.
Okay, there you go.
Pretty
Big
much.
difference. Okay.
Pretty much.
Yep. I got another question.
God.
Let's go
Keep
around
going.
the audience. Let's see
Go
if
ahead.
you guys in the audience can go ahead and answer this as well. Second question I brought up is, in your opinion, are the unions and corporations truly at odds? The way the media puts it, and really, truly, really fighting for themselves the way they paint it out? Or could they be both playing to a role in a larger game that the media is actually trying to either help create or facilitate? What do you guys think? And I'll give that to anybody. No specific order.
If that was the case, then most unions would be all fighting, and there wouldn't be no work getting done. UPS, FedEx, everybody would be shut down then.
Well, to a small degree, you don't think that already happens? I mean, because the moment UPS comes up with a thing, you know that Chris Spears has his Teamsters involved in not only UPS, but every other LTL company. So the moment UPS gets a leg up, you can damn well bet the rest of them are.
If that was the case, then there wouldn't be that many UPS and FedEx trucks on the road.
Well, that has little to do with that. It just has everything to do with every time a union passes something, or like in the case of the Canadian Railroad, they put together something and actually forced a capitulation or an arbitration, if you will. So now you don't think that Chris Spears ain't watching that thinking, if they can do it up there, I can do it down here. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe because Chris Spears went nuts with Yellow, killed them, and then really nailed the nail in the coffin for UPS, maybe the Canadian Railroad is doing it because they know exactly what leg up Chris Spears suddenly had with all the publicity he did last year. Ring a bell? I mean, nobody's stupid here. Just goes to show you what I said earlier was right. Go ahead, John.
I don't want to disagree with you there, but the Yellow situation wasn't 100% on the union. It was more on the management of the company. Not that I'm supporting unions. I'm not a big union guy personally, but that the corporate leaders of Yellow drove that thing into the ground. The union helped 100%, but yeah, it was definitely the management there that did it.
Well, I don't doubt that. With Yellow, you are very right and very proper to point that out. But I'm talking mainly, I mentioned them as just in passing, but I'm talking mainly about the UPS deal. I mean, because they almost shut themselves down and went on strike too, until finally they come up with an agreement. You know, and like I said earlier, I mean, people watch stuff like that. People learn. And I'm almost willing to bet and call that the people from the CBK and the two railroads up there, I'm willing to bet they think, well, we'll try it. We'll see what happens.
That's the thing about.
Go ahead.
That's the thing about unions is, whenever they speak and they say jump, you say how high and right now. I mean, it's either that or you're kicked out of the union, which that means you have no job at that place.
Yeah.
You don't ask them how high or anything like that. You just do it.
That's what I'm saying. They tell you. They say you jump and you say how high and voila.
No, you don't even ask that. It's all about money. That's what it comes.
Yeah,
it's how can we squeeze more money out of the independents to take over everything.
Yep.
It kind of goes back to the last week when we were talking about with the trucking association groups. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I was sitting there thinking about that a little bit more, and $3,500 to it. Yeah, I could probably afford it, but how much say do I have? $3,500 worth, and that's it. Well, they're gonna go
Oh
take.
yeah, the OIDA discussion we had. Yeah, and that was 3,600
Yeah.
by the way. That's what Tom had pointed out
Well,
that in that conversation.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then again, that's
So,
what it
let
comes
me
down
let
to.
me
Yeah. Go ahead,
let me
poet.
ask you guys this. You raised a point, and I do believe you mean are the nations working hand in hand? Okay. If that's the case, start looking back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s
Mm-hmm.
within all the sweetheart deals.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I mean, that's always nothing's really changed. And I honestly seriously doubt that even this conversation in its entire context will ever change anything. If it serves to do nothing but open the eyes of at least the few viewers that are here, or maybe the broader viewers that watch this on the replay, game over. I mean, I got my goal, I got my accomplishment. Good for me. But when it comes down to, exactly what is going on, change starts once. It starts with one person doing one thing differently. And you have an exponential factor at that point. If you can get one to become two, two to become four, four to become eight, and so on. So, I mean, that is the method and power that I'm acting on. So, but good point you raise. I mean, it's been going on since the dawn of time.
Have here.
Biden wears diapers.
That's
Moving on here.
what's
Biden wears diapers makes a point, and he makes another quote by Milton Friedman. When the government pays its employees higher wages, those wages are at the expense of the taxpayer. Ain't that always the case? Look, if you're
Kind
going
of
to
common
quote,
sense.
yeah, if you're going to quote Milton Friedman, at least get deep. That's all I'm going to say. Milton Friedman's good, but one sentence. Come on, man, make me work for a living.
I mean, you quoted Confucius earlier. I mean, come on.
I know. I'm just picking on him now. You didn't build that, or YB. Canada's unionization rate, 31.8%, remains more than twice that of the United States, 13.8. Now, I don't know what percent ratio he's quoting, if it's pay or if it's workers. I don't know, but that's interesting.
I think it's the rate of unionization throughout the whole country. If you take all the jobs, what percentage of that jobs are unionized?
I wasn't going to go there because I know a couple of comparisons I made when we had the UPS discussion were a lot higher than 13. So I wasn't sure. So,
you didn't build that statistics, please.
All right. Yeah. If you can specify what the statistics refer to, that would be helpful. I'm limited. Biden wears diapers. I'm limited by character space, dude. We're talking about YouTube, not Twitter. Joking. But I get your point.
No, there is limited
It's
space.
X. It's not Twitter. It's X.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 250. I don't know. I run the darn thing. I don't use it. I mean, what do I know?
Now that's
Anyway,
funny.
as
right
I said at the beginning of the show.
Who you are.
Yeah, they're right. I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. There's only one, and he's upstairs. So, I mean, going around, last question I've got. How do you guys see labor disputes affecting the trucking industry moving forward because of what we've seen? And do you think the media is really giving enough attention to the consequences of what goes on to people like you and me and the small independent owner operators? Do you really think they even care? So, what do you think, John? Do you think
No.
that's what you think we're like last in their mind, or what do you think?
Honestly, they don't care. Yesterday, a very wise man said to me when we were having a discussion, trucking doesn't have feelings. Companies don't have feelings. All they care about is the bottom line. So whatever benefits that company or that person, that's what they care about. They don't care about you and me. And that's just the way it is. That's the way our country works. It's kind of it's capitalism in a nutshell, honestly. There's no feelings when it comes to money. So
But wouldn't you expect, at least from the media's perspective, that underdog, if you will, that's supposed to be fighting for the everyday individual? Journalism used to be about objective truth at the expense of reputation. That's what it used to be. I mean, that's not the exact description, but
yeah, but
it
now
used to
it's
be. Yeah,
but now it's
what?
all about telling the story that they want to reveal. Like,
Yeah.
you can always talk about how the sky is blue, but if they want you to think the sky is green, they're going to do everything they can to convince you that's true. Like, it's about what they want you to believe. It's not about what you need to know. That's yeah. I'm not a big fan of media sources around the world, which is part of the reason why I support this program here at Truckin City Media. I don't care what channel you're watching on, come over and subscribe to this guy because he tells it like it is. He might not be always right, but at least he's closer than anybody else I've ever watched, especially when it comes to trucking. So kudos
And
to
I'll
you.
give you credit, and I'll give you credit where credit's due, hence the banner. But nonetheless, I mean, I thank you for the kind words. I mean, when it comes down to the media's agenda, I mean, it should be more fixed toward the common everyday person that watches or consumes their product. I mean, used to be when I was growing up years ago, I would open up, a publication like, for example, New York Times, or my local rag at the time, which was the Times Held Record. And I would expect every story that was in that newspaper to be at least objective and fair, covering the news. That was back in the 70s. That's when I was born. Dating myself, sorry, but it's like today it's not. I mean, if you pick up that same rag today, you can clearly see an agenda.
Yes,
Go ahead, Paul.
on every news story.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
Times
Say again, Paul?
have changed.
They have indeed. Yes, they
Times
have. Yep.
But I'm learning to deal with it. Okay?
Yeah.
And being on your show is one of the ways that I'm dealing with it.
There you go. And I appreciate your trusting.
And I'm learning.
I appreciate your trusting me. And moreover, I also appreciate the things you're teaching me because I'm learning a lot just from having you on the show. By the way, that statistic that YB was talking about earlier, he says it's referring to the entire workforce, U.S. compared to Canada.
I called it.
Good to know. Yep. Good to know.
Good to know. I want to see numbers.
Well,
he gave you the numbers.
Well, yeah, the numbers were 31.8 in Canada versus 13.8 in the U.S. And he was right.
And I disagree.
Hold on, Paul.
I disagree.
And you have every right to be. However, here's what I'll say.
Numbers don't have feelings.
YB, you are welcome. Let me do this. YB, you are welcome to send an email to that'struckinnews@outlook.com. That'struckinnews@outlook.com. Now, dude, don't just send me any email, okay? I welcome you to send me an email that includes, if I can get this darn thing right, that includes all that we need to know. Where did it go? I know there was an email somewhere in here on one of these slides, probably covered. Hang on a second. Shut up. Trying to cover everything, and I'm completely messing everything up. somewhere in here is, because I took it off my banners. I don't have it at
I
hand,
know what the
ready
problem
to
is.
go.
Ain't got no gas in
There it
it.
is.
Where is it?
Go
That
back
last
one.
one? There it is.
That's trucking news.
YB, send an email to that's truckingnews@outlook.com. And I'll tell you what, if you've got statistics readily available in a form of a URL, a news printout, a PDF, whatever, send it to me. I will make sure to forward it to Poet, and I will satisfy his curiosity. I don't expect you to be able to put all that in a comment,
No,
as it were.
hey,
So rather than
I
fuss with that,
I understand.
I
I
will
understand
say,
that, but
yep.
when I get it's a stat referring to the entire workforce U.S. compared to Canada.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't mean a stat. You're saying
Right.
it's a stat. I want numbers.
I don't blame you. And if he is so
So
inclined, I will certainly forward that information to you when he does. Go ahead, John.
let me. I was saying, can I clarify? I think what Poet wants, he wants to know the actual number of the workforce compared to the number of the union, so he can figure that percentage out on his own. That's, I think, what he's saying there. But
Yep.
honestly, it sounds like, at least from the United States side, it's probably pretty accurate from what I can see. I don't know about the Canada side, so.
Yeah, and I don't know either one of the numbers because my story didn't call for the research on those numbers because I was just talking
Yeah.
mainly and purely about the media. So yeah, I'll have to eat crow on that one. Any other time I'd know.
Okay.
What do you think, Thumper?
No,
In terms of
no, you.
in terms of how the labor disputes affect the trucking industry, do you think that they pay enough attention to the small guys, or do you think that more should be done?
No, they don't pay attention to us.
Yeah. I mean, it
So
used to be, as I pointed out earlier, used to
there we
be
go.
in the in the golden age of media, they used to actually point things out and work in our favor. Today, not so much.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you
honest
know,
we I honestly think we need a reset. Like everything needs to just go to
Uh-oh.
crap, and we need to start over.
what? What's the uh-oh?
The Great Reset. Never mind.
Nah, hey, everybody's entitled. Hey, imagine what would happen if that actually did. No, I'm not even going to entertain that one. Never mind. What about you, Grumpy? What do you think? Do you think they don't pay enough attention, or do you think things need to change? And if so, what would you do? No, never mind. Seriously, what would you do? Yeah, notice the look he's giving me. He knew where I was going with that.
To be honest with you, I don't really have much of an opinion on that other than I just, like I said, I stay away from any kind of union type stuff. I mean, it's just, I haven't found any use in one, and I'll never find a use in one.
I'm talking about the media coverage. I mean,
Oh,
you
the
have an
media
opinion one
coverage?
way or the other. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the media is what it is. They're after the factor of getting their ratings, no matter what it takes. I mean, they're not gonna stop until they get enough ratings to make money from.
Yep.
So if they have to hide stuff, they're going to. They
Yep.
only show what they want to. Once again,
True. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but every chance I get, I'm going to point out the obvious because you know what? At the end of the day, we need to have an honest and accountable media, not one that favors one side or the other. But I think we owe it to the media to actually treat everything right. I mean, think about it. If there was one thing that you could change to make the media actually cover things equally, what would that one thing be, Larry?
Money.
Would you limit the amount of money they get, or would you take
Limit the
money out
amount
of
of
the
money
equation
they get.
entirely? Yeah.
Make them go back to the old ways of reporting stuff, actually doing the work and doing the investigating.
Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to pay more for that?
Absolutely, if it got the truth out.
Mm-hmm. And you think that would actually make a difference?
I do. I mean,
So let me make sure I understand this right. You're of the opinion we should go back to the old school ways things were done.
Actually, let the reporters get out there and do their own investigating work.
Well, even then, a lot was left out, even back then. So, I mean, it's been going on for years. This is not a overnight thing.
Well, I agree with you there, but they didn't sugarcoat anything either.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Like
they did.
Not as much.
They just it was a lot easier to hide it back then because back then you didn't have people walking around with smartphones that could video everything going on either.
I think there needs to be more journalistic integrity. That's what he's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Yep, journalist integrity. That's something that in this day and age doesn't exist anymore. We don't have journalistic integrity anymore. That's something
Except
that
for
went
here
away.
on Truckin City Media.
Well, thanks for the shameless plug.
Well, I mean, it is true. I mean, you do spend countless hours building your stories and telling it like it is.
He do.
Yeah.
He do. Oh, good Lord.
Leave it to you guys to crack the joke. I can't have a serious show to save my life. I just can't. You guys are hopeless. You guys really. But hey, you know what? These guys actually make the show what it is. I would give an arm and a leg 2 ways to Sunday if I could duplicate every single effort every single one of you guys contribute and make to this show. I want you guys in the audience to do me the great favor. Tune in on Wednesday when I come to you with another great story, an absolutely stellar panel. We stir things up. The media nowadays doesn't get it right. And I will be here every single week on Saturday and Wednesday telling you exactly what to look for and what to expect. When it comes to the media, only believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. But I will tell you who to trust. Driving with John, Grumpy Old Trucker, Midlife Trucker, and everybody else on this panel. You go to their channels, you check them out, like their videos, like this one, subscribe, and while you're on the road, remember, it's the trucks that make the deliveries, but it's you that make the difference. Till we come to you again, make sure you keep between the lines, keep it the faith, and keep it rolling.